Preview season continues here on the channel, and today it's all about the Ole Miss Rebels. And I'm going to be honest with you, right off the bat, this is probably going to be one of the most controversial prediction videos I've done in the entirety of this entire thing. We've gone through over 30 teams. I think now we're at 36 exactly. And one thing I can tell you for certain is that there's some stuff I say in this video, or I'm going to say in this video, that I don't know that I fully agree with, and I will point those things out. But this is going to be probably the most controversial one so far. So make sure you stick around. If you're new around here, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on Ole Miss in 2025. And make sure you go check out the playlist. We got a playlist titled Preview Season here on the channel. And it's got every single team preview we've done to this point, and it will hold every single team preview we'll do up until the end of it all in the middle, first week of August, about a month from now. And man, we've got a lot of fun yet to go here on this channel, including season previews, conference previews, college football playoff previews, Heisman Trophy previews. And then, of course, we'll be here every day of the week through college football season. I'm talking 7 days of content throughout the season here on the channel. So make sure you don't miss anything. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. I'll say that one last time. And then let's go ahead and talk about Ole Miss here in 2025. To start to do that, though, we always go back to 2024, or the year before, in any preview, and look at what this team did, including recruiting and portal moves. This team was 10-3 last year, 5-3 in SEC play. They were a top 3 scoring offense. 38.6 points per game was good for third overall. They were top 3 in scoring defense. 14.4 points per game allowed. That was second in college football. They walked out of the year with a plus 0.8 turnover margin per game, which is good for 12th in the college football. And then they also walked out with number 16 recruiting class and the 4th overall portal class with 30 commitments. This has been kind of the mark of the Lane Kiffin era here at Ole Miss, especially as NIL has grown and the transfer portal era has grown. Lane Kiffin addresses needs through the portal, through proven commodities in the sport. And a lot of times so far it's worked to an extent. Like last year, for example, this is a team that I think a lot thought could make the playoffs. And then we sit back at the end of the year and they were just shy, just missed out, and part of it had a lot to do with just the experience working together. I think the one thing that I will say is when you have heavy portal classes, it really can affect your overall ability to perform throughout the season. When you look at teams that do this, these 30 plus portal classes, a lot of them don't end up being better off than they would have been to just develop themselves. When I say that, I look at like Colorado, for example, has done a really good job of utilizing the portal and going from 1-11 to 4-8 to 9-4. The things that they are missing, though, is the fact that they are utilizing the portal a little too much, and there's a short leash for some of those guys. Ole Miss is kind of in that same boat. They rather than the short leash, though, they just are utilizing the portal tremendously. How are these guys going to work together, especially this year? I think it's a lot less certain than it was last year when you bring in guys like Walter Nolan, Juice Wells, and others to step in and be key players on the team. We'll see how it goes, because I think that there is certainly room for discussion on everything I'm about to say here. Like I said, I think this is going to be probably one of the most controversial previews I do in terms of my predictions. But I'm going to give you all the details I can so you can make your own informed decision. Lane Kiffin returns, obviously, as a head coach. He's going to be calling the plays on offense. He's got Joe Cox as his co-offensive coordinator. He's got Brian Brown and Pete Golding as defensive coordinator, co-defensive coordinators. This team returns 4 total starters, 2 on each side of the football. On offense, those returning starters are both, I believe, on the line of scrimmage. Let me double check that. Diego Pounds, and then they bring back Caden Lee, I'm sorry. those two guys return as starters from last year. Other than that, it's all a brand new team, including new quarterback Austin Simmons, who I'm really excited about. I'm high on this kid. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. I think he's going to take a similar route to what we're kind of seeing with Lenore Sellers. Starting a little shaky, a little slow, kind of get his bearings under him. And then as time goes on, he's going to become a guy that we're probably going to be talking about as a 2026 Heisman candidate. I think that that's the kind of talent and the kind of ceiling that Austin Simmons has. I just don't know if 2025 is going to be the year that gets done. You look at the running back room, Logan Diggs is a returning player from last year. And then they got Damian Taylor coming over from Troy as their expected backup. I've also seen Kawan Lacey as well as backup. So hard to say, but I'm assuming we'll probably see 2 or 3 running backs this year. I think it's going to be running back by committee for the Rebels this year. The wide receiver, you got Dejon Stribling coming over from Oklahoma State. Harrison Wallace coming over from Penn State. And then Traylon Ray comes over from West Virginia. And I think he is going to be one of the key players to this offense. I really loved what he was able to do with Garrett Green in the West Virginia offense over the last couple of years. He's going to step in and become, I think, probably wide receiver 4. Going to play out of the slot. But he is a guy that I think is going to gather a lot of attention over the course of the season and really, really boost his draft stock and just boost his overall portfolio really over his college career, because there's a lot of people who don't know and are not expecting him to come in and be great unless you're an Ole Miss fan or unless you've seen him at West Virginia. I think he's going to be a guy that we get a lot of good from in 2025. And then, of course, I talked about Caden Lee, the only returning starter at a skill position. And I think he's going to have his work cut out for him in terms of kind of fighting through a lot of the portal battles. I mean, this is a team that brings in, I think I saw 6 or 7 different wide receivers that were transfers in the 2 deep. It's going to be interesting. We'll see how they move forward, how these guys develop and grow together, and how the overall chemistry of this offense comes together. At tight end, you got Daquan Wright, one of the few returning from last year on the offensive side of football. They bring in Luke Haas, though, from Arkansas to be tight end number 2, maybe tight end number 1 by the time it's all said and done. I think this team has a lot of potential. There's a lot of good big names. There's a lot of talent at these skill positions. The biggest thing, again, how do they build this chemistry? How do they become again, I say this a lot, but a cohesive unit working together and putting a lot of good stuff out on the field. This offensive line last year was not great. They were barely inside the top 50 in Power 5 in terms of blocking grades, pass block and run block to both. They were 64.0 PFF grade in pass block, which was 49th out of 68 Power 4 teams. They were a 59.4 grade in the run blocking, which is 48th out of 68. So bottom half, we'll see if they get better. But again, you're bringing in 4 different players on the offensive line. Then you got Diego Pounds, who's going to be the starting left tackle. Having a returning player at left tackle is a big deal. But when you got 4 different guys trying to learn a system and learn a blocking scheme, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher than we expect. When you look at the defense, 2 returning starters. 4 of 11 projected starters are from the 2024 team. The biggest thing and notable transfers from last year, or from this offseason, they bring in Princely Umamielan's brother, Prince Will Umamielan, coming over from Nebraska. I think he's going to be pretty similar to his brother, honestly. I think he'll fit into this program and this play style well. Deshaun Womack comes over from LSU, along with Sage Ryan coming over from LSU, projected to start at safety. Those are 3 guys, but they bring in a lot of guys that I think are going to be key to this, because, again, a lot of the experience is coming from the portal. We will see. I'm not necessarily loving it, but I don't think they're going to be bad. I think this is going to probably fit into maybe a top 20 defense, top 25 defense at the worst. But there's certainly some question marks and certainly some things that I am concerned with myself. They bring back Suntory Perkins, who basically leads all returning players in every category other than forced fumbles. He had 60 tackles last year. That leads the team returning. 14 tackles for loss, which was tied with 3 other players. How are they going to replace all of that backfield production? 10.5 sacks. Again, he was only tied with, I believe, I'll have to go take another look to make sure I get that right because I'm blanking here. It was Princely Umamiela, as a matter of fact, he was tied with, which is what I thought, but I wanted to make sure I said that correctly. I don't want to misinform. But then he also had 1 interception, which leads everybody returning. Xavier Harris had 1 forced fumble. He leads those returning in that category. This team forced 12 fumbles last year. They had 12 interceptions last year. They're pretty balanced, pretty good at taking away the football, but they're replacing a lot, especially in the secondary when you lose a guy like Trey Amos, for example. How do you build that up? Sage Ryan, I think, is the guy they're expecting to kind of replace that role that Amos played. But it's really tough to tell. I think that this is a team. I can talk ad nauseum about how I feel about the transfer portal and really how I feel about the way that it affects teams and teams' ability to compete at their highest level for all 12 games. And I guess I'm kind of going to explain and show that as we go through the preview of the season. My thoughts that I wrote down here, as I do for every other team, were as follows. This team is once again loaded up from the portal. This year is all about how the new pieces work together and become a cohesive unit. That's all I had to say. That's all I can say about this team. But what I am going to do is something I've done a couple times. I'm really intrigued to hear what other people have said. So I'm going to bring out the Athlon magazine, and we're going to read off a quote from an anonymous SEC coach. The first program in the league that went all in on portal players to take them to a playoff bid went bust. Now what? Austin Simmons is talented but unpolished, and it's going to take some time to develop him. They are one of the best programs in the country at evaluating the portal, and they've done a very good job integrating that talent and winning right away. But this is still an inconsistent program. The loss at Florida last year is an example of why Lane Kiffin isn't considered an elite coach. They could be just as talented on defense and maybe bring Simmons along quickly, but they're still a step removed from the top-end programs. With the level of competition in this league, it's hard to see a roster like this one immediately come in and secure a playoff bid. That's from an anonymous opposing SEC coach. And I agree with this entire thing. I've already said some of this. Austin Simmons, probably a year away from really being the player we think he can be. How does his defense build with all the new pieces and parts? How does the offense build with all their new pieces and parts? Let's just go ahead and talk about the schedule and bring it up on the screen here. Because the only way I can really explain to you how I feel about this team is by showing you this right here. They sit at an over-under win total of 8.5. Their odds to win the conference are plus 1,700, and their odds to win a national championship are plus 3,300. I think all of those are entirely too high. I cannot buy. I mean, this is this is waste your money. Excuse me. This is a waste your money right here. Like 100% waste your money. If you want to go bet on them to win the conference or bet on them to win the national championship, go ahead. But I'm certainly not telling you to do it. I'm not telling you not to, because I'm not telling you what to do with your money. But yeah, I would not be touching this, because this is a team that if these portal ads, if Austin Simmons doesn't play out the way we expect him to play out over the course of the year, if this defense themselves don't play out the way we expect them to, this is a team that could go 6-6. Hear me out. Look at this schedule. I know that Kentucky's not scary, but that's a road trip, game 2 of the season, and Kroger Field is not necessarily it's not the toughest place to play. Maybe I wouldn't put a top 25, but it's not an easy place to go and win. That's going to be a game where Kentucky's going to be ready to go. They don't have as much that they're trying to replace in the portal as Ole Miss does. And I think that they're going to be able to get pressure on Austin Simmons, make him uncomfortable. They're going to set a blueprint for the season on how to get the job done. I'm going to be honest with you. I may tell you something I disagree with later in this episode. But this Kentucky team, this is prime upset category right here. Prime upset spot, if you're asking me. Arkansas. I mean, look, they are a team that I think is still improving. I think still getting better, and I think they could get a win here as well. I think it'll be tough, but they could do it. Tulane's not a team I'm giving up on. I love John Summerall. I think that's a tough game to play. LSU, a projected championship pick in some cases. Hard to believe that that would be an easy game or a game to win, even if it's at home. Washington State, sure, that's a down team. Georgia, on the road, no less. By the way, this is a team that you beat last year by multiple scores. They're going to want their revenge. Good luck. At Oklahoma, that's a team that's heavily improved from last year. And probably is going to be clicking a lot better offensively at this point, or throughout the better portion of the season, I should say. It's not a guaranteed loss for Ole Miss, but it's a tough game. South Carolina at home, this was a win last year for Ole Miss. They dominated South Carolina in Columbia. Can they repeat it? Or, we're talking a Heisman contender at Lenore Sellers right now. That's what everybody is expecting. That's what everybody's talking about. If South Carolina is as good as advertised, do you beat South Carolina if you're Ole Miss? Especially if things don't pan out, the answer is certainly no. If things do pan out, it's still a 50-50 shot. Citadel, okay. Nice November game for the SEC. And then you get Florida. That's not easy either. I mean, DJ Lagway, projected Heisman candidate in a lot of cases. At Mississippi State, sure, that's probably your easiest schedule, or your easiest game that's not, but it's in the conference. That is your easiest game in the conference schedule. This is tough. I mean, I'm telling you, 6-6 is a real possibility. I'm not going to say 5-7, but 5-7, I guess, is possible. Is it possible that this team does the impossible or improbable and goes 10-2? Yeah. I think this team sits between 6 and 8. I don't see more than 8, and I don't see really less than 6. But it is going to be difficult to get through this. Very difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and do my prediction. Hear me out on all this and understand that just because I may be predicting a certain record does not mean I think this is a bad team. I need to be very clear. This is going to get a lot of... I know this is going to get a lot of shit. I know it is. So let's go ahead and get it over with. Georgia State. Do you get the win? I'm not really questioning that. I'm not worried about it. At Kentucky on September 6th, I predicted Kentucky to win this game in the Kentucky season preview. I stand by that statement. However, I do not believe that Ole Miss goes 6-6. I just don't see 6-6 in the cards. But with that said, this game is a determining factor on that record. I think it's going to be close, and I think they are going to struggle their way through it. They lost to this team last year with a much more talented roster and at a later point in the season. Maybe by a couple weeks, but still a later point in the season. This is, I'm not kidding, I'm saying this dead serious. I think Kentucky's going to win this game, personally. This is what I'm going to tell you that I disagree with. I think Kentucky's going to win this game. The issue I have is I could not find another place to give Ole Miss a win that I truly believed would happen. So I'm going to say they'll be ahead of schedule. They'll get a win over Kentucky. I think they'll beat Arkansas. I stand by that one. Just buying that one. They'll get a win over Tulane. It's going to be a closer game. Going to be tough, but they'll win. LSU. They're going to lose to LSU. I don't really see this game going any other direction other than an LSU win. I don't care where it's played. I don't care who's in the game. Well, I do, actually. If Garrett Nussmeier gets injured at some point, we don't predict that. But if that happens, maybe my tone changes. But for right now, I'm all on LSU. And then Washington State. They'll be 5-1 after the first 6. But I truly believe 4-2. I wholeheartedly believe 4-2 at the end of the first 6. They go out of that and get a road trip against Georgia. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia 2 years in a row. I mean, they remember last year, and I just think that it's not going to happen. And you're certainly not going to go to Athens and do it. On the road against Oklahoma, I'm taking Oklahoma. I think they're just the better team. I buy a lot harder into John Mateer and that offense at Oklahoma, defense as well. This game being played in Norman's a big factor. South Carolina at home. I'm going back and forth because I think these two teams are both really similarly talented, and I think it depends on the trajectory of Ole Miss and how they progress through the year, how they work together through the year. I'm going to say South Carolina wins. Close game, but I think they're going to win. I think it's just going to be the momentum lacking for Ole Miss at this point. 2 straight losses, losing 3 out of 4. They'll make it 4 out of 5. They're going to win over Citadel, kind of bounce back, get the spirits high again, and then get a home game against Florida. But I think they're going to lose that game to Florida. I'm buying harder into DJ Lagway. I'm buying really hard in this Florida defense. I think they're going to step up a lot more this year. Taking Florida. So you're going to have lost 5 out of 7. Then you're going to play Mississippi State, get the win, finish 7-5, 3-5. I'm telling you, I buy 6-6. I buy 6-6. I buy the under, certainly, with this team. Under 8.5, I'm all over. I think that 8 is probably the ceiling. And that's a soft ceiling. Like, I'm talking, like, that's more like an awning, I suppose. But I just, it's really hard to sit here and predict this schedule, knowing what we think we know about a lot of these teams. Now, somebody is going to flop. Somebody's going to fail. And I don't know where Ole Miss is going to be projected or ranked preseason by the AP. But we do have this history of top 10 teams that just completely fall off a cliff any given year. Last year it was Florida State. A couple years ago we had North Carolina in the top 10, and they completely fell off the face of the earth. We have teams to do that. And I think this Ole Miss team is kind of a prime candidate. They're probably going to come into the season ranked top 15, and I think they're going to walk out of the season, I'm going to say unranked, truthfully. And at most, they're going to walk out of the season outside of the top 20. There's certainly things that could change. There's certainly opinions that could change over the course of time and seeing this team play. But it's hard when you have a lot of things changing, 30-plus players coming into the program that you don't really know how they're going to work together. We know how they've worked in their previous spots, but how are these guys going to work together and become, again, a unit, a team, essentially? Just a really tough ask, I think, to do that year over year. Eventually it's going to flop. Eventually it's going to fail. And this year is that year for me. 7-5, 3-5 in conference. If you see it go to 6-6 when I do the SEC season preview, know that I changed that Kentucky game back to a loss. Yeah, that's where I sit. And feel free. Give me all the hate, all the questions you could possibly ask. I love it. I love the discussion. We've had really, really solid discussions in the comments recently, and I love that. I love when the comments section gets active, becomes active, and we can have good, solid conversations, respectful conversations, but good conversations nonetheless. I appreciate you guys tuning in. It's been a lot of fun doing preview season so far, and tomorrow it gets, I think, even more fun. We're going to Virginia Tech. We're going to be talking about the Hokies in 2025 and what is a make or break year, I think, for Brent Pry and that whole entire coaching staff there in Blacksburg. Make sure you stick around. If you're new, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on Ole Miss. What do you think they'll do in 2025? Am I completely off base, or do you agree? Let me know down below. We will be back again tomorrow. Sorry today's video is getting up a little late. Had some issues throughout the course of the morning that I had to sort out. So tomorrow we'll be back on time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. But thank y'all, and we will see you then.